Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to our random review. Today's random review comes from Italy, and it's The Night of the Devils, or La Notte dei Diavoli. This is directed by Giorgio Ferroni, who was deaf, and also directed The Millstone Women, which is available in Raro video. This is from 1972, and it stars Gianni Giarco, not Juliana Gemma, who I always get them confused. This is on Raro video in the United States, but this is Raro video partner label of Radiance, and this is number 1. This is the first release of Raro video through Radiance in the UK, but as I said, I'm sure you can get this on Raro video in the US. And this is multi-region. And I wanted to talk about this film apart from it's a lot of fun, but just the weird sense that sometimes films can be made roughly about the same time, but in different parts of the world, and we start getting like a kind of a genre, a kind of zeitgeist of similar sort of films. So when I was watching Night of the Devils, I couldn't help but think about Messiah of Evil, which was one of my film watches of the year, which was made in 1971 in California, USA, but it wasn't released until 1973. And then you have Night of the Devils, made in 1972. Both of which you could almost say are Southern Gothic, even though in Italy that kind of Gothic owes itself to Bava. The story of Night of the Devils is from the same story by Tolstoy, the Wunderlack, that was one of the stories in Bava's Black Sabbath, the one with Boris Karloff. So if you know Black Sabbath, you'll kind of know the story of Night of the Devils. But both Night of the Devils and Messiah of Evil have this weird atmosphere. One's set in the woods of Yugoslavia, if you remember when countries used to be called Yugoslavia, as Jarko is a young man in charge of a lumber factory who crosses the border from Italy into Yugoslavia to get some lumber, and has a car accident and gets involved with this family who live in this kind of deserted little village, and gets told you can't go outside after 6 o'clock when it's dark because there's strange things going on. Now, Night of the Devils is nowhere near as bonkers as Messiah of Evil, but again, there's just this feeling of it's all kind of atmosphere and everything's a little bit odd, that kind of you can't help but think of Messiah of Evil if you've seen both films. And it's just funny how a film can be made in Italy and a film can be made in California, USA, and they both have the same kind of feel. So because this is an Italian film in the 70s, you can also guess how it ends, but it's also got that city versus country thing that, after exposing myself, so to speak, to more Italian cinema over the last couple of years, you know, that's just an undercurrent in almost every Italian film. It's this, you know, supposed to be civilized city clashing with the kind of uneducated, uncivilized country bumpkins, if you like. And Garco was very aware of this, so that's why he has a moustache in this film, because he felt if he was a clean-shaven city boy, that would be a bit too much of a clash. But because he's a moustache, you know, the country folk are a bit suspicious of him, but they do kind of take him in and offer him, you know, to spend initially the night, but it lasts a little bit longer than the night, while one of the family fixes his car. So we have the old patriarch, we have the two sons, one's more the alpha, and you have his wife and the two young girls. And as we know in horror films, if you've got two young girls, they generally tend to be a little bit creepy, because they're two young girls, and that's just, two young girls are always creepy in horror films and in life in general. And slowly, obviously if you're again familiar with Black Sabbath, or you're familiar with the Tolstoy story, things go from bad to worse as strange things happen. But the film is kind of told in flashback. We see Jarko at the start of the film coming out of the woods. His clothes are torn. He's got scars and blood in his face. He's obviously out of it. He collapses. He wakes up and he's in a hospital. But he can't remember. Well, he's not really communicating, but he can't remember who he is. And we see this amazing montage in the first 5 minutes of the film, which is lots of naked women and lots of gore and people in masks and chains, and it's like a Silvio Berlusconi party. But he seems to be terrified of the night. And then a young woman comes in trying to find him, and she recognises him. He's got no ID on him, but she recognises him. But then as the doctor and detective is trying to get to the bottom of this, she seems to have disappeared. And then we start seeing the story in reverse. Not in reverse, but a flashback to Garco in his car with a big smile on his face, away to get some lumber, and then it all goes horribly wrong. The score is by Giorgio Gasolini, who was a jazz musician, and the opening, the title music and the theme that kind of repeats every now and again is absolutely gorgeous. Originally I actually thought, is this Morricone, because it does have a female voice. Not that Morricone was the only Italian composer to use female voice, but it just has that just glorious goosebump inducing almost Morricone note to it. Gasolini also did the score for Deep Red. Obviously Goblin did the rock music, but Gasolini did the score for Deep Red, and this score is absolutely fantastic, because that's the thing with Italian police films or gialli or horror films in the 60s and 70s. Even if the film's not that good, and don't get me wrong, Night of the Devils for me is very good, the music is always interesting or fantastic, and certainly Gasolini's music for Night of the Devils is absolutely wonderful. So even if you don't like the film, you can just close your eyes and listen to the music. But the film develops as we flash back, and again, it's one of those films that's all about atmosphere. There's some wonderful bits of gore, and we do kind of understand why Jarko may have lost his marbles, but as I said, it's a 70s film, so you can probably have an idea of how it will end. The release by Raro through Radiance is stacked with extras. There's a commentary by Alan Jones and Kim Newman, which I'll have to listen to on second viewing. The Devil Among Us is an archival interview with Jano Jarko, which is 24 minutes, and he's still looking good at his age. The Angel and the Devil's archival interview with actor Agustina Bell, which is 25 minutes long. The Child of Darkness, which is an interview with actor Cinzia Di Carolis from 13 minutes. She's one of the creepy little girls. Celestial Light, archival interview with camera operator Nino Celeste, which is 18 minutes. Fear and Jazz, which is a wonderful archival interview with composer Giorgio Gasolini, which is 32 minutes. And an archival interview or introduction with critic and horror expert Chris Alexander, which is 6 minutes. And you've got the trailer, reversible artwork, and you get a nice booklet as well. So it's a wonderful first release of Raro through Radiance. The second one, Gang War in Milan, I won't do a random review of, but that's a wonderful film about two warring gangs in Milan, strangely enough, one who runs prostitutes and a French gang who smuggles drugs, which is a lot of fun but fairly brutal, but brutal in an enjoyable way. So that's the first two, Raro through Radiance, but I would highly recommend Night of the Devils, and watch it as a double bill with Messiah of Evil, because strangely enough they do have a similar kind of feel and atmosphere. They both could be Southern Gothics. There is, on both Raro releases through Radiance, there is an English language dub if you really want to watch that, but obviously there is the Italian with subtitles. I'm not sure why anybody would buy a boutique Blu-ray and then listen to the English version, unless you're a completist and want to see what the translations, whether the subtitles and the English dub match, which they never do. But that's Night of the Devils, which is rather awesome, and the music is spectacularly good, especially the title music, which comes back in at the end. It's quite fantastic. So thanks very much for watching. Please let me know if you've seen Night of the Devils and what you think of it, and hopefully you'll join me again for more random reviews. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell.